welcome back to the Doctor's Geek. I'm Ellie and today I'm going to be starting my Classic Who review series. Now, I consider myself a pretty big Classic Who hothead. I love all of the classic Doctors. My favourites include Patrick Troughton, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy is definitely at the top of that list. If you follow me on Instagram at the Doctor's page, then you know how obsessed I am. So to kick off this review series, I'm starting with my ultimate favourite Classic Who episode ever. It was season 5, episode 1, starring Patrick Troughton as the Doctor, and it's Tomb of the Cybermen. So like I said before, Patrick Troughton is one of my favourite classic Doctor Who's anyway. I find him having a really sweet nature, and he's very he's pretty much just a gentleman. Now, one of my favourite companions is in this episode, and that is Jamie. Now, Jamie is a Scottish lad. He doesn't care what the Doctor says. He's going to do things his own way. And in this episode, he wears the most adorable kilt ever. And if you go and watch it, which you can buy it on DVD, and there's loads of clips on YouTube. If you watch it, you will agree with me. And Jamie is just such a good companion for the Doctor because he's feisty and he really gives the Doctor as good as he gets. I was so impressed by the filming, like around this time, because even though it was so early on, it's surprisingly good. Like there's a lot of zoom ins on the Doctor's face, and the sort of mechanicals of the Cybermen themselves are actually really good. Throughout this entire episode, the music that they use, especially when the Cybermen are actually crawling from out of their tomb, it is so creepy and it puts you so on edge that I wish they bring that exact piece of music and slot it in to a modern Doctor Who episode, because I've watched this twice before I even did this video, and every time I either get my toes turning a little bit or I literally have to like go like this and breathe, because it really gets you in here. The costumes for the Cybermen themselves are quite simple, and you can sort of see that they're made with things that you can sort of find around your house. Like I saw bits of tubing, ping pong balls, things like that. But we can expect this as it was quite early on, and they didn't have the advantages that New Who does. However, it's impressive for the time that it was, and the things they had at their disposal. I take my hat off to them, really. Whilst we're on the topic of Cybermen, the voice of the Cybermen. So this is Peter Hawkins, who was the original voice of the Cybermen, the OG. There's one part when the Cybermen, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it doesn't really matter because it's been out like 50 years now, what are you doing if you haven't seen it? The voice, obviously, as I said, Peter Hawkins. There was one part where the Cybermen have just crawled out from their tomb, and the Cyber Controller kills one of the men that's getting all big and stuff, and he said, "You belong to us, you will be like us." And if you watch it, the clip is on YouTube. I'll see if I can put the link below. Literal chills every time, because it's so mechanical, and it's like you can't even hear that it's an actual human voice. It sounds that much like a robot. On to set design and costume now. I love the set. The set is absolutely fantastic, and I love they've got sort of Cyberman murals on them, and it's really interesting to see the comparison from then to how they are now, because they're very, very different. And I think every big boss, you know, the story writers, so like Stephen Moffat or Chris Chibnall, I think they should always look back on the sort of set designs that they had back then, because I think they're absolutely stunning, especially the one in this one. And it's the same with the Doctor's costume. It's so simple. His costume is so simple, but it's so effective because, like I said, he's a gentleman. He looks like a gentleman. The Cybermen's murals are frightening. They're meant to be frightening. On the same topic, the Cybermats themselves look so much more realistic back then than they did now. Back then, they had massive googly eyes, big antenna, and really like ferocious looking sets of teeth that looked to be about 24 on each top. Now, they just look like metal worms. There's literally no, there is no sort of frightening thing about them. They're just there. Whereas in this episode that I'm talking about, the Cybermats swarm the Doctor, Victoria, Jamie and all the others, and they actually stop them by setting fire to like a ring around them, and then like the Doctor said, their brain waves get confused and then they die. And it was really nice to see Patrick Troughton's Doctor get really frustrated because everyone's shouting at him and he's just like, shut up, move over there and do as I say. Let's get back on track to the episode at hand. Now, I find with all the classic Doctor Who episodes, they can be a little bit slow, and it's the same with this one, especially the beginning. However, if you're as dedicated to Doctor Who as I am, you will sit there through it and not skip any of it and just give it a chance. Also on the same sort of par, this story, it's a bit predictable. You know, the Doctor goes to an alien planet, goes in a tomb full of Cybermen. You know, what's going to happen? Obviously, he's going to stop them. I feel the biggest thing I have about this episode is that because it was still quite early on, like I said, only season 5, you can tell that it's still got that educational vibe. There's one point where the Professor, the Doctor and Kaftan are talking in this episode, and the way that they're talking, the things that they're talking about, you can still see that it's aimed at a educational audience, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but this takes me back to my point about it being a bit slow. I feel like it slows the episode down much more than it needed to. Overall, I think Tomb of the Cybermen is one of my top sort of Doctor Who stories ever. It's got adventure, it's got danger, and it's got that little bit of sweetness from the Doctor that we love. And unfortunately, that's all I've got time for today. I'm hopefully going to have another video up tomorrow. I know, mind-blowing. And it's going to be my Doctor ranking. So, my least favourite Doctor and my favourite Doctor. And, like the other video, if it's 10 minutes long, it's gonna take 2 days to upload. So I shall say allons-y and see you next time.